Last video I mentioned it was an intro video, basically stating the beginning of my learning coding journey. But as I mentioned in my first video, I've actually been doing this for, well, about a year in total, with lots of stops and breaks. So today I'm going to talk about that, talk about where I've started and where I'm at now, and then next week I guess the plan is to go on a week by week basis as to what I'm learning, what I'm struggling with, and sort of document that journey. So today's video is a bit more of a contextual video. I'm keeping my voice very quiet. I'm actually on holiday at the minute in my brother-in-law's place in Mallorca, and to be honest, it's really embarrassing recording these videos. So everyone's downstairs catching some sun. I want to be getting a good habit of doing these videos, so I've snuck upstairs into my room and I'm just recording it from here. So yeah, apologise for advancing the audio, might be a bit shit. Where it started, to give a bit more sort of background context myself, I have no tech background prior to a little bit of exposure in my current role. Before I started my current job, which was just coming up to 3 years ago, I was a fitness professional, worked as a PT for over 8 years, did online coaching, did some corporate wellness events. After 8 years of that, I decided that I was finished with that industry, finished with that job, and I wanted something completely different. So I got an amazing opportunity through a friend. Effectively, it was a sales role. I was building out a partner program for it wasn't a tech product, it was a product that was heavily related to tech, in a type of tech called low code and no code, which effectively is allowing people who can't code to build software with drag and drop interface, and I'm not going to go too deep into that. So that's where I got a first real interest in, I suppose, indirectly through coding. And I tried to learn how to do no code and low code successfully with some web building apps like Glide, and there's obviously like Squarespace and stuff that I'd used before, but that's where I first got like real exposure to coding. Then a good friend of mine, I mentioned in the video, he did a boot camp and trained himself up, and I guess at that time I didn't really think me learning to code was anything that was possible. I thought you'd have to go to uni and do a computer science degree, etc. And he did a 3-month boot camp. Like I said, he's now working as a software engineer, has been for the past 3-4 years, doing quite well for himself. So I was like, okay, that was my first initial part where I was like, maybe I can do this. I was like, right, let's look into this coding thing. I sort of looked at bits and pieces, but not fully committed. Went on one YouTube video and sat down. I was like, right, I'm going to do this. Opened up this Free Code Academy YouTube video and literally opened the first 5 minutes. I was like, don't know any of the terms, don't know what he's talking about. Closed the laptop. Again, was like, maybe this isn't for me. But it just kept being a sort of reoccurring theme or thought that I kept going back to, being like, I kind of want to look into this. But I didn't really know where to begin, and that was very overwhelming. Then I spoke to my friend, and he mentioned something called the Odin Project. This was about bang on a year, this was about September 23. And he said he knows a lot of people that have done the free online course, which is what the Odin Project provides, and they've got a job from it. So that gave me a real kick up the bum to be like, okay, perfect. I remember whilst I was at his house, looked it up, signed up, like I said, all for free. And immediately I was very interested, and I was like, okay, I feel like I've actually got a bit of a structure and a bit of a pathway to follow to teach me how to learn how to code. That was actually really good, and I've heard other coding influencers talk about what a good resource Odin Project is. It's very good from taking you to absolute zero, which is where I was at, to step 1. From there, from what I remember, there's a lot of reading, which doesn't really suit my learning style well. I get distracted very easily, and I'm a bit like, come on, let's get to the point where I'm like doing something or building something to begin with. But I got introduced to command line and sort of learned how that worked. And command line had come up on my computer before. I was always terrified to touch it. I thought I'd type anything in and the computer would instantly implode. So it was cool learning how that worked. Then I set up Git, and then set up Visual Studio Code, and then started playing around with the first few tasks to do with HTML. At the time, I was initially in this mindset where I was like, right, I'm going to follow this through, I'm going to complete this course, I'm going to be able to learn how to code. What I found with Odin Project to a certain point was that it was probably not enough hand-holding for me. So it would teach you the theory and then you'd go and do it. And I struggle with that personally. So they have these little tasks at the end of the theory, and I was really struggling to achieve those tasks. And I was getting much more fixated with progressing along the course than actually learning the content. So from there, I actually found another guy called Andrew Code Smith. I bought a PDF of him, which was like 25 quid or $25. And that gave some good links as to tutorial videos. And then I followed a HTML video, and that was like a 2-hour HTML video. HTML I found us to be pretty straightforward. Built like a website, bare bones structural website using HTML. Like, cool, understand that. And then I moved on to CSS, and that's where I'm at now. CSS I found to be a lot harder than HTML. I feel like HTML, it's very straightforward to learn. CSS I found is like a rabbit hole that goes really deep, and I don't know how deep I need to go. The goal for me is to move on to JavaScript, and the problem that I'm trying to figure out now is how much CSS do I need to know before I then move on to JavaScript. My friend that I keep referencing, his name's Lee. So Lee said, if you can get a good foundational understanding of CSS, it will really help you in JavaScript. So I'm trying to really commit to it and understand it well. But yeah, like I said, that's the question. I'm sort of struggling with right now is like, how much CSS do I need to know? And in a nutshell is where I started, where I'm at. And next week I'll dive more into what I've been learning in CSS and show some of what I've been building, and then go from there. But for now, it's 12:10 in Spain on a Sunday, and I've got another 5 days here, which means basically it's beer o'clock. Got pile of lunch booked in an hour and a half, and then gonna sit and watch rugby and American football whilst having lots of beers and alcohol. So I'm gonna focus on that for the rest of the day.